Imagine this. You're in a cockpit, the fuel gauge is near empty. You grab the radio, yelling for help, but no one on the other end gets it. Avianca Flight 52 doesn't just crash. It's pushed by confusion, silence, and deadly mistakes. What went wrong? Let's find out. The plane is a Boeing 707. It's tough, dependable, and has been flying since 1967. Over 61,000 hours in the sky. It started with Pan Am, then joined Avianca's fleet in 1907. But age catches up. The autopilot doesn't work. On its second-to-last flight, it's fully disabled. Maintenance crews know it burns more fuel because of its hush kit and age. This detail will prove fatal. 9 crew members were on board that night. Captain Laureano Caviedes Hoyos leads with over 16,000 flight hours. Beside him is First Officer Mauricio Klotz. He's just 28, with little experience on the 707. At the back is Flight Engineer Matias Moyano. He has 23 years of expertise. This team knows JFK's tricky approach, but even pros can't escape a chain of bad luck. For Flight 52, that chain is already tightening. Avianca Flight 52 leaves Bogotá on January 25, 1990. It's ahead of schedule. After landing in Medellin, the crew preps for the next leg to JFK. They fuel up with strict calculations. Enough for the flight, reserves, alternate plans, and delays. Total fuel, 78,000 pounds. At 3:08 p.m., the plane departs Medellin. Everything seems fine at first, but trouble comes fast. After entering US airspace, the plane faces multiple holding patterns. Heavy traffic and bad weather near JFK force it to circle. First over Norfolk, then Atlantic City. Finally, the CAMRN intersection. Each hold burns more fuel. By 8:44 p.m., things are critical. The crew radios air traffic control. "We need priority," says First Officer Klotz. Controllers ask about an alternate airport. Klotz replies, "We don't have enough fuel to divert." At 8:47 p.m., they leave the holding pattern, running on fumes, heading toward disaster. At 8:47 p.m., Flight 52 is cleared for an instrument landing on JFK's runway 22L. Controllers warn the crew about wind shear. It's a sudden, dangerous shift in wind speed and direction. The weather makes things worse. Light drizzle, dense fog, poor visibility. The crew acknowledges the warning and starts descending. By 9:03 p.m., the crew discusses a go-around. They know their fuel is dangerously low. Controllers prioritize the flight and guide the plane on its final descent. At 9:15 p.m., First Officer Klotz radios JFK Tower. He confirms the plane is on the approach path. The crew debates when to lower the landing gear. They decide to wait. The descent is rough. Turbulence and wind shear throw the plane off the glide slope. The ground proximity warning system blares, "Whoop, whoop, pull up," over and over. The plane is too low, but the runway is still invisible in the fog. At 9:23 p.m., just 250 feet above the ground and 2 miles short of the runway, the captain makes the call. A missed approach. The landing gear retracts. The plane starts climbing, but there's no fuel left. The crew is out of options. At 9:24 p.m., things on board Flight 52 take a turn. The captain gives a direct order. "Tell them we are in an emergency." The first officer radios JFK Tower. His message is clear. "We'll try once again. We're running out of fuel." The controller responds casually. "Okay." The captain isn't satisfied. He pushes again. "Advise him we are in an emergency." The first officer reassures him. "Yes, sir. I already advised him." But air traffic control doesn't grasp the danger. They tell the crew to climb to 3,000 feet. Minutes tick by. Fuel runs out. Frustration builds. The captain repeats, "Advise him we don't have fuel." The first officer tries again. "We're running out of fuel, sir." The controller asks if they can handle a 15-mile detour. The first officer hesitates. Then, with little choice, he responds, "I guess so. Thank you very much." At 9:32 p.m., chaos erupts in the cockpit. "Flame out! Flame out on engine number 4. Seconds later, another engine fails. The flight engineer shouts, "Flame out on engine number 3. Essential on number 2 or number 1? The plane is now gliding. It's powerless. The first officer radios the controller. Desperation fills his voice. "We've lost 2 engines. We need priority, please." The controller clears them for an approach, but again, the urgency isn't understood. By 9:33 p.m., the captain makes his final request. He asks if the ILS is ready. The first officer confirms. "It is ready in 2. 1 second later, silence. The NTSB says the crash happened around 9:34 p.m. The powerless plane descends into the night. It clips trees, then utility posts, before slamming into a hill with a steep 24-degree slope in Cove Neck, New York. The impact tears the cockpit and forward cabin from the rest of the plane. They hurtle over the hill's crest and land 90 feet, 27 meters, away. The main fuselage stops just 25 feet, 7.6 meters from the point of impact. Its forward end teeters on the hill's slope. Cove Neck descends into chaos. Residents call 911 moments after the crash. Jeff Race, a local paramedic, arrives quickly. What he sees is gut-wrenching. Most passengers are still in their seats. Some are alive, crying out for help. The sight is overwhelming. Emergency teams rush in, but the location makes rescue difficult. A narrow, single-lane road leads to the site. Traffic clogs the way. Rescuers abandon their vehicles and walk miles to reach the wreckage. Fog adds to the nightmare. It grounds rescue helicopters for 2 hours. The critically injured have little time left. Still, the rescuers don't give up. By midnight, helicopters finally airlift the most injured to hospitals. Firefighters, paramedics, and local residents join forces. Doctors set up triage stations in a nearby yard. Priests comfort the survivors and offer last rites. But the scene is grim. Bodies are pulled from the wreckage all night. Some are mistakenly believed to be dead. One survivor, Astrid Lopez, is placed in the makeshift morgue. She moans softly, and a rescuer hears her. She's rushed to the hospital just in time. By 3:30 a.m., every survivor is evacuated, but the cost is immense. 73 lives are lost. The entire flight crew dies, except for one flight attendant. Survivors carry scars that will last forever. Many have broken bones, head trauma, and spinal injuries. The infants on board suffer the most. Some are torn from their parents' arms during the crash. One doesn't survive. This wasn't just a crash. It was a scene of unimaginable heartbreak. Why does Flight 52 crash? The NTSB faces but tough questions. First, investigators focus on the cockpit voice recorder. What they find is chilling: miscommunication, confusion, and desperation. The crew declares an emergency multiple times, but their tone lacks urgency. Controllers assume it's under control until it's too late. Fuel is the key issue. Avianca Flight 52 is running on fumes. The crew fails to clearly state they need an immediate landing. Those precious minutes make all the difference. Air traffic control missteps only add to the disaster. Then, the seat fails. The crash rips passenger seats from the floor. Injuries worsen. Infant safety is another heartbreak. FAA-approved child seats could have saved lives. The NTSB's report pulls no punches. Poor training, language barriers, and unclear protocols doom Flight 52. But there's a hard truth underneath. This tragedy is preventable. Flight 52's story is one of heartbreak and missed chances, but it's also a lesson in aviation history. Would you have made the same choices in the cockpit? And remember, every detail matters in the skies. Stay curious, stay safe,